Hello and welcome to another episode of Enter the Nerdosphere, the official podcast for the Nerdosphere, where we dive deep into a different topic every week. This is the start of our Season 3, as we're calling it. We took a significant break in between our last episode and this episode. As we've said many times in the past, life got in the way.
Our break was so substantial that for those of you who view us, you might notice that I actually look pretty similar to the last video. But in between the last video and this video, I actually grew out a pretty large beard and a huge mustache.
Robust
Beard and mustache, to the point where a child at a recent wedding thought I was Santa Claus for the entire night. And man, that was that was a cool experience.
That was the end.
But the beard is gone now. So you can either believe me or you can check my Instagram, Dr. Tennant on Instagram. And you'll find the proof is in the pudding there, or as they would say, is in the whiskers.
Yeah. As we come into Season 3, we're going to hit the ground running. We are going to, between now and the next episode, we're going to come up with a official schedule, which we will post all around and let you guys know next time. We even have plans for making the content a little bit more professional, trying to expand on quality and things like that. But we'll
even notice we're in a new space.
We are in a new space.
We have a new table. We're no longer on a dingy card table. We have an actual table.
We've got a legit table. We've got new lighting. We're in a new studio. This area behind us here will
be decorated soon.
Yeah, it's a work in progress.
But here's the thing. If we had two options. It was either start recording without the decor, or we wait for the decor and just never record, because let's be honest, it will always be pushed off. Like, oh yeah, we'll do that next time. And then it's not. We have to make sure that we are recording to motivate us to actually just do it.
Exactly. And now that we're here, like, I'm super pumped to be doing it. Like,
until
like right this moment when we hit record, like, I was just kind of like, all right, let's just record.
You might notice in all the previous two seasons, this might be the most excited you've ever heard Clayton. The inflections in his voice are at an all-time audible high.
So instead of being just like totally monotone and talking like this, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Woo! Oh my! Look at the.
Yeah, you're welcome for that at home. That sound wave
is
sorry. So big.
I don't know if I can fix that.
You might not be able to, but here's some more wine.
All right, so enough about nothing. Today we thought it would be fitting to come back and talk a little bit about Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Now, this is coming a little behind the hype train. It has been out for a while at this point, as everyone knows. Part of that is strategic. Part of that is just because life is what it is, and we just now are getting to where we can start recording again. But now we feel like we can freely talk about what we need to talk about without having to be too spoiler warning-ish, because most people have probably seen it by now. If you haven't, you need to go see it.
No, you don't.
People need to see it.
Well,
they need to see it.
They
once.
need to. I mean, yeah, if you want to continue watching Star
Wars,
you need to. But do you want to?
But as you may have guessed from that, we're not huge fans of the new film. It seems like the majority is still in favor of the film. And a lot of people just write off people who don't like the film as people who don't like change, things like that. But we wanted to present our legitimate reasons for why we didn't like it, because if there's not a bigger Star Wars fan than this guy right here. I'm pointing at myself for the audio listeners.
It's not me, it's him.
I was so in love with The Force Awakens, and I'm getting goosebumps just like saying the name Force Awakens.
Because it was fantastic.
And this one just let us down. And it's not just from a standpoint of just a butthurt fan. Like, there are legitimate reasons as to why we just don't feel like this is even just a great or good movie. Like, there are actual issues with the movie, not just the Star Wars problems, which there are many. But anyways, welcome back to Into the Nerdosphere. We have lots of cool thoughts and ideas for the future. Hope you guys stick around with us, and welcome to any new people. And if you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, give a share if you like the content, so that we can get our voices out there. Mm-hmm. And I guess let's just dive into it. Why don't you? I've been talking a lot. Why don't you start us off?
So for me, I knew what I was getting into with Star Wars.
Well, hang on. Spoilers ahead. This is not a spoiler-free discussion.
Yeah, so actually, you know what? Here's the spoiler-free review. We didn't like it, but you have to see it because it's canon. Boom, spoiler-free. Here comes the spoilers.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I really want to get into with Star Wars The Last Jedi is, at its core, the humor is not Star Wars. I truly believe that about 90% of the humor that was presented to us in The Last Jedi does not belong in a Star Wars movie.
A lot of it was like our day and age type of humor. Like, it wasn't like normal type of humor that could transcend any culture or any time period or things like that. It was like when the movie opens up and Poe is doing the whole "I'm pretending to be on hold for Lieutenant Hux or General Hux or whatever."
Yes,
that was, I knew immediately that there was going to be issues.
Yes, so that entire exchange of dialogue of him being on hold and waiting is a mechanism that only exists in our world. That exchange of dialogue does not make sense in the realm of Star Wars because they don't have call centers, they don't have IT
telephones,
help. Like that's not how it works. So that sort of joke, that beat, was written for the audience. It wasn't written for the world.
Exactly.
Which is what I had issues with, and immediately. So that's the beginning of the movie. Immediately pulls me out, and I go, "What?" And then it's also immediately followed up with Hux giving a grandiose speech, and then Poe saying like, "Oh, I can't hear you. I'm on hold," and then him doing another grandiose, like, over the top villain speech, and it's being self-aware, making fun of it.
It was very self-aware.
But here's the thing, that works in a superhero movie where you're trying to maybe justify an outrageous costume and wanting the audience to just buy in.
Or a James Bond film. Like, I immediately thought of like the old Bond films where like Goldfinger's just like, "You're gonna die anyways, so here's my entire plan."
Right.
Like, that's what I thought of. It's not what happens in the Star Wars universe.
But the thing about Star Wars is the villains are supposed to be grandiose. If you're trying to make me self-aware and think that the DNA of the Star Wars villain is actually incorrect and try to feed me something different over the past 20 plus years of Star Wars material, I immediately have kickback. You are now giving me an interpretation of a Star Wars movie that is not Star Wars at its DNA. And that, so like from the movie starts, I immediately go, "Oh no," because I wasn't thinking that was going to be a 10 out of 10.
We do this thing now thanks to our friend Nick, who's also a friend of this show. We go into movies now. What are we going to rate this out of 10 walking into it? And we try to rate it to where we're not going to be disappointed. I actually walked in thinking it was going to be a 7, and I was still disappointed. I know you walked in like gung-ho, 10 out of 10.
I was like, let's go. How could you get it wrong? How could you take what JJ gave you and get it wrong? More on that later.
Yeah.
The other comedic beat that really, really pissed me off was the scene where Rey presents Luke the lightsaber, and then he throws it.
Yeah, he throws it behind him.
A comedic beat that is not Star Wars. Like, that kind of humor is almost slapstick humor, and it does not belong in a Star Wars movie, and it also does not make sense for the character. This is a lightsaber that, to our knowledge, he has not seen since Cloud City. Now, granted, there is a Luke Skywalker comic that is going on at Marvel Comics that might explain that maybe he knows how it came back. That I can't speak to yet because it hasn't been revealed. But as the viewers, all we know right now is that lightsaber was lost at Cloud City when he lost his hand, and somehow this girl, who I still don't think is random, brings it to him and says, "Here." He's not going to take this circumstance of evidence and just go, and throw it off.
Well, let's go ahead and just jump into Luke Skywalker. Probably one of the biggest issues for me, Star Wars wise, because this movie as a movie just doesn't make sense anyway. But Star Wars wise, Luke was just not Luke. From what we've seen,
Right.
what we know, Luke should not have turned out this way. And I get that like circumstances can change people the way you wouldn't think and things like that. I just don't buy it, man. I just don't buy it. Somebody who was so beholden to the Jedi beliefs up until even the very end, of
to the point
Return
where
of the Jedi.
To the point where, like, and it goes back to inconsistencies, and this is part of the problem. We were fed a lie. Kathleen Kennedy told us that these new Star Wars movies were Star Wars movies made for the fans, by the fans, and they had a plan. We now know that each individual director pitched an idea individually, and they just thought it would be pieced together.
We know there's not a plan. Right. Because from, which we already suspected, but from interviews, Rian Johnson has said, well, I don't know what they're going to do in the next one because they're just now starting to write it.
Right. JJ just pitched the idea a few months ago after The Last Jedi.
If we've learned anything from modern cinema, you have to have a plan for a shared universe. You have to have a plan. The DCEU is crumbling because they didn't have a plan going forward, and now they're desperately trying to set one up, and they still haven't been able to do it. And this is a step backwards, in my opinion, because there's not, for Star Wars, because there's not a plan going forward. How can you say we're going to have 3 brand new movies and not at least have
the scaffolding,
a plan behind it? Like, Rey is this, Kylo Ren is this, Luke and Leia and Han are going to play these roles, and this is, the overarching, this is where the galaxy and the overall story is going to be at the end. Like,
well, and how do you have Lawrence Kasdan come on, who wrote Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi? How do you have him come on to co-write Force Awakens with Abrams and then not even have him involved at all with The Last Jedi? It was completely Rian Johnson.
Yeah, it was all.
And that's part of the problem. We saw by the prequels that when one creator has 100% control, there's issues.
Yeah.
But I'm getting a little carried away. I'm revolving it back to JJ set it up. He set up the tone for Luke Skywalker's self-imposed exile as one of
failure, of shame, almost.
Not just shame, but like when you find out that he went to the first Jedi Temple, you're immediately thinking like he has failed and he's going to seek out a better answer.
Right.
Because he left breadcrumbs to find him.
Yeah.
You don't leave breadcrumbs to find yourself. You don't go to the first Jedi Temple to just go die.
That's an extremely astute point that I actually didn't think about until this moment. He, according to The Force Awakens, left cryptic, yes, hard to find, yes, breadcrumbs to find him. And why would he do that if he was just there
to die,
being a grumpy old man who didn't want to get back involved?
Who still didn't have the wake-up call when he found out that Han died. That's like one of the most glaring moments that you realize this is not Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Also, another reason that it's not Luke Skywalker is this. I hate that moment so much.
I didn't mind that. I didn't mind the brush of the shoulder. I guess we're still kind of on like Star Wars wise why we don't like it. The biggest thing for me is that JJ set up a rich foundation for the new lore.
Yes.
The Knights of Ren, what Snoke is or could have been, Luke going off to find the first temple, who Rey could be, all these things. And even the Resistance in the First Order, there were so many like questions like, okay, why is the Resistance named the Resistance? Why are they separate from the Republic? How did the First Order like maintain all of the Imperial stuff? There's so many things laid down in foundation that could have been expanded upon, right. And none of it, literally none of it,
and honestly,
was acted upon.
Before we get into the weeds about Snoke and stuff, I want to say for those who are listening and getting riled up by saying The Force Awakens is a rehash of Episode 4, you're missing the point. You're getting caught up on semantics. Was the scaffolding of The Force Awakens very similar to A New Hope? Yes, the scaffolding was.
That in itself is very intentional because Star Wars
is that.
The storytelling style of Star Wars is it's like a wheel. It's the and I always blank on the actual technical term, but it's like history repeats itself.
Right.
The story architecture repeats itself. So it's time now for a new trilogy. So the scaffolding of each movie will be similar, and like that is intentional. It was meant to be that way for the prequels also, whether that translated or not.
Right.
Is up to us, I guess, to decide. But that's the point behind Star Wars, and that's just honoring what Star Wars is. And it's like I'm the only saving grace for The Last Jedi for me is knowing that JJ is coming back for the next one.
Well, and honestly, like for those who think, one of the biggest arguments I got that I heard was like, "Oh, great, another planetary destruction." Honestly, the equivalent is like someone created a nuke, and then someone stopped the nuke from actually being used.
Oh, you're talking about Starkiller Base being another
Well, guess what?
Extreme weapon of mass destruction.
If the technology exists and is proven to work, the next imposing evil force is going to try to do it bigger and better. Like that's just a logical thing. That's not even me saying that yes, it's a part of a Star Wars story that it's either a large army or a large weapon. Like
okay, we're kind of going off on a tangent, so let's get back on track. So we've talked briefly about Star Wars reasons why we don't like it. Luke Skywalker didn't seem to follow the character path that we thought he should have. Rian Johnson completely ignored most, if not all, of the the lore, especially foundations that J.J. Abrams set up in The Force Awakens. So let's kind of get into just general movie. It being just a movie, like we've kind of gone over some of our major gripes as far as Star Wars fans.
I really enjoyed Hux in The Force Awakens because we had a human player rivaling a dark Force wielder, and then in The Force Awakens they took that character and just made him a bitch.
Exactly. So now let's talk about like character development, story, editing, timing, like that kind of stuff. So let's get into that. Let's get the biggest one out of the way and just say the entirety of Poe and Finn's arc, purple-haired lady's arc, Leia's arc. It was all pointless.
Completely pointless.
It was all completely.
It was
pointless.
like a throwaway episode on a Stargate show. Like that's what I walked away with.
It was a throwaway episode on a Smallville episode. Suck on that. The purple-haired lady paid, and I can hear you all at home like maybe saying her name. I don't even care. I don't know her name. I don't ever want to know her name.
We don't need to know her name. I don't care. It's also part of the thing.
She could have been easily, and in my opinion, it would have been more impactful if her entire role was Leia.
Yeah, I agree.
We are introduced to her in this movie. She is an asshole. She causes the entirety of the redundant plot line that is Poe and Finn because she doesn't tell her subordinates what the plan is, which makes no sense
whatsoever.
And the only rebuttal I've seen online and in videos is she's the boss, she didn't have to tell anybody. Like you have
ships.
Just you have your ace pilot for one, your Leia's right-hand man going off the reservation, committing mutiny to try and save the fleet. She knows this and still doesn't say anything. Unacceptable. It's unacceptable. But imagine if, especially with her, now one of the coolest points in this entire movie was when she sacrifices herself and hyperdrives into the Star Destroyer. That was so dope. But that they could have retconned that easily to have been Leia. Like I really believe that first of all, everybody, even people who like the movie, make fun of the bridge getting shot out and Leia being in space and then like force pulling herself back because it looked bad. It doesn't make sense. And then she's in a coma for the entire movie.
Right.
They could have and should have. Rian Johnson, you stupid piece of... Purple-haired lady should have been Leia. The bridge should have never been blown out. The entirety of purple-haired lady should have been Leia the entire time. She should have told Poe from the beginning. And when it became apparent that they had to send off escape pods and be a distraction, that should have been her moment to sacrifice herself. And
Right.
they could have easily gone back and done reshoots with a body double that showed just the back of her head.
Right.
And had her be the one. Because now we're going to have Leia's death be in the introductory scroll or in dialogue.
Right.
Like it's not going to mean anything. Whereas Carrie Fisher deserves more. She deserves to have a storyline that makes sense and a storyline that honors her memory as Princess Leia, and that should have been it. She should have been the one to sacrifice herself to save the Resistance.
Yeah, but honestly, I still stand on the soapbox of if the end goal was for someone to sacrifice themselves anyways, to just to go down with the ship. That should have been done like during the first fucking act of the movie. Oh, sorry.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree with you there because what goes along with the entirety of Poe and Finn's storyline is this slow motion battle in space where the Dreadnought or the Super Star Destroyer, Snoke's Super Star Destroyer, is slow enough to where they just like can't catch up with these little ships, and the entirety of the movie they are just in this slow motion battle. And it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
I can buy into the idea of this is a point in space travel where light speed is the primary function. So if you are forced into a moment of pure thrusters, yes, each ship is going to have its own.
I'm not disagreeing with. I'm not disagreeing with that. What I'm disagreeing with.
Hang on. But what I will not buy into is the fact that they don't send anyone else to go intercept them. Even if it's a light speed and cut them off.
It's not even that. It's the First Order is made up of more than what is just in this battle.
Right.
We know that because the First Order is the remnants of the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that they have more.
Poe mentions there's other dreadnoughts.
In this movie mention that there's more than one dreadnought when they take out the dreadnought in the beginning of the film. So we know, based on just movie dialogue, that there are more First Order out there. How is it feasible that they don't say light speed to this sector and let's crush these dudes? No, instead we're just going to spend hours, and just chase them.
Just keep firing at them so they know that we're behind them.
It just doesn't make sense. And if you are sitting at home
to the point,
and you like this movie and you're saying to yourself somehow it does make sense, it doesn't make sense.
To the point where we have Finn and Rose, which by the way, I really sincerely hope that in the next movie Rose has the most painful, brutal death in all of cinema history because she is the most stupid and annoying character I've ever been introduced to. I do not care about her. I do not want to see her ever again. But do not tell me that her and Finn can go beep, 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 and bebop off into this other planet at Canto Bight, where it gets even a little bit too preachy for my taste.
It does.
Go find a master coder, and end up with another master coder. So there's two master coders on Canto Bight. Because if you were thinking that you went into that movie and you watched those scenes and you thought that Benicio del Toro was actually the master coder, and then it just happened to meet by mistake, no, it's not. The slicked hair back handsome man in the casino was legit the master coder. They have talked about how he was just like another great coder.
Yeah.
Then they do all that whole side adventure, and then they come back and like all that entire time the First Order couldn't have thought of another plan. I hated it. It was a go around. It was monotonous. There was no place for it, and I kept thinking
the slow motion battle was so slow that Finn and Rose had time to light speed across the galaxy to another planet. Well, first, they were able to talk to, what's-her-face?
Maz.
Yeah, Maz Kanata, or whatever. Let's call her. Hey, you know a master coder? Oh, yeah, I know one. He hangs out here. Okay, I'm going to light speed across the galaxy. I'm going to figure out that, oh, no, he's not going to be able to help me. I get arrested. Oh, no. Hey, we found another master coder. Okay, let's escape. Okay, now let's do this. Okay, now let's fly. And they still get back. It's bad storytelling. This isn't even about Star Wars anymore. It's bad storytelling. If you think it's good storytelling, you must have liked Batman vs. Superman.
Oh, that's deep.
You must have. And I just banged my thing. I see it all over the thing. I'm sorry.
I mean,
I'm just like I really thought that we'd come into this episode because we've had time to like sit on it, reflect.
Well,
I thought I would come into this and be able to speak rationally, but like I'm getting legitimately frustrated.
I am too.
Because it's not good Star Wars, and it's not good. It's not a good movie, and it really just like if it was, I could almost get past the Star Wars problems because I know JJ's probably gonna fix it if the movie was good. The movie is not good, and I don't get why people think it's good. I don't get why I think it's good.
That the flashbacks with Luke was a Roshan effect, so it's great film technique.
We've never had a flashback before. Also, we've never had a flashback before, and I'm not gonna like sit on this and say like you should never have a flashback in Star Wars, but we've never had a flashback.
He also
in Star Wars
fought
before.
the slides. Did you know there's no sliding transitions because he didn't think that belonged anymore. He wanted the Star Wars to evolve.
Oh, dude, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
I didn't even notice until you just said that, but he didn't. And
my thing is like this. This is your moment as a director and as a storyteller to write a Star Wars film. This is your moment to make your mark on cinema history, and this was the best you could think of.
No, what it is we now have had two different, and I don't doubt that Rian Johnson's a fan. I'm not going to take that from him. I'm not going to say no, you're not a fan because of the movie delivered. But what we have now is two different visions from fans. One, J.J. Abrams came and wanted to honor what he loved about the movies and delivered what he loved. Mm-hmm. Rian Johnson came in and decided to try and evolve and modernize, in his mind, what he loved. And I just feel like that's the wrong way to go. Like, I don't know. Like, everybody who's out there saying that The Last Jedi is the best one because it's not a Star Wars film just doesn't get it. They don't get it. Or they're on the hype train drinking the Kool-Aid, because what makes Star Wars is Star Wars. You can't make a film that's not Star Wars and then call it the best and say this is what Star Wars should be, because that's not what made Star Wars great.
You're also, one of the biggest things you're not paying tribute to the fans is, well, one, the Canto Bight thing being
I'm not even about
for the new rebellion, the whole point with the little kids and stuff. So this is a two-part. I'm gonna try to unpack this in a coherent manner. So the Canto Bight stuff was to serve an end goal of inspiring those kids that we saw in the stable, because
to rebel.
They're gonna be the new rebellion. One, that exhausts me to think that the rebellion is like that young in its infancy.
That in itself doesn't make sense, because we have the rebellion in its entirety became the resistance. And in this movie, we're led to believe that the resistance is now made up of like 20 ships, which doesn't make sense, because only seconds ago, because the movie ended, or the movie started, this movie started or the last one ended. So we're now supposed to believe that within the time span of minutes, the resistance went from having the capability of taking out Starkiller Base to not being able to handle a single fleet from the First Order.
Yeah. So back to my unpacking. So we have that because Rian Johnson's big message with this movie is to forget the past, don't hold on to nostalgia, grow up and move forward. So he's all about creating the new era of Star Wars, the new rebellion of people, and trying to break free of what he considers the nostalgia chains of the original trilogy. You have that combined with fans eagerly frothing at the mouth, waiting for Luke Skywalker. They waited the entire movie, The Force Awakens, and didn't even get a word out of him. So we're going, great. So this next movie is going to be his. He's hardly in it. He's a grumpy old man. He's not his own character. By the time he finally has a showdown, they fake you out by saying, no, he's not actually dead. He's alive. He's force projecting. You have a moment where you wipe the sweat off your brow, and you're like, great. But then he dies. So you've wasted that moment. I would have rather had him die in an epic battle than have him go out the way that he did.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And then to further unpack that,
if he's going to die, he should have shown up in real life.
And this is what I'm trying to unpack too. Rian Johnson is trying to facilitate this new rebellion. He's trying to get rid of Luke Skywalker because he wants Star Wars to not be about the Skywalkers anymore. But here is the thing.
The anthology films are supposed to be about the Skywalkers.
This is the reason why the Coruscant movies are supposed to be about the Skywalker families and why a true fan shouldn't really care about anyone else. The Skywalker lineage is born of the Force. There is no other Jedi alive before or after the Skywalkers that have the connection to the Force that they have, because Anakin was born of it. It was an immaculate conception. It had never happened before. This is something truly amazing, and you're wanting to say this really unique moment in the Star Wars lore, you just want to flush away? So for some random Joe Schmo, because hope is the message?
Well, here's another big deal with, remember, we're going back to Star Wars issues. Rian Johnson is shoving down our throat in this movie that anyone can be a Jedi. And he does that by revealing that Rey's parents are no one, and continues to fuel like this hope and like resistance, like starting from nothing. And then that kid who like moves the broom at the very end, like anyone can be a Jedi. Here's the thing. Anyone could have been a Jedi. We already know that. The Jedi Order from the prequels, they found kids and infants with Force talents, took them from their families, like voluntarily, of course, and then trained them. They were nobodies. Sometimes they were somebodies. Sometimes they were nobodies. The only reason that we have somebodies now is because of the Skywalker lineage. Like, he is trying to go back to this, anyone can be a Jedi. We know anyone can be a Jedi. Obi-Wan's nobody special. He's special because he has the Force. Qui-Gon Jinn was nobody special. He was special because he had the Force. The Skywalkers are special because they were born of the Force.
Which makes them
and it frustrates the literal shit out of me that he thinks he has to somehow get the series grounded again by saying anyone can be a Jedi. Well, guess what? Anyone was a Jedi. Yoda was a nobody, but he was the greatest Jedi ever.
Right.
So Rian Johnson can just like suck my donkey dick or something. Like, I cannot stand.
I think the final two things that we really need to hit on are Kylo and Snoke, and I want to start with Kylo because it's on my mind right now, and Snoke is easy to recall. Kylo, in my opinion, was incredibly mishandled in this movie because what JJ did in The Force Awakens was set up a villain that we had never seen before. Kylo was so far down the rabbit hole that he had an inverse perception of light and dark.
That's what I loved about Force Awakens.
Even Darth Vader and Darth Sidious, when they talk about the light side and the dark side, they talk about it being self-aware of like, this is evil and this is good, but this is powerful. We doing this because we want to do what we want.
Exactly. Kylo was the opposite.
When Kylo is talking about the dark side and the light side, he is perceiving the light side as evil, as a hindrance, as something that is holding him back. He's asking Han Solo, help me with this. And in that moment, as a viewer, you're thinking, oh, he's struggling with the dark side. No, he's struggling with the light side, which is amazing storytelling. And it is so cool to see a villain embrace that because it is going to give us a really unique character moving forward. And then you have that completely backpedaled, derailed, and flushed down the toilet when Rian Johnson comes in with The Last Jedi, and he apparently is still having turmoil over killing his dad.
Well, he's
Did
having
you even
turmoil.
watch the movie?
Well, in Force Awakens, we are led to believe, and it's insinuated, that Snoke is grooming Kylo to be the new Darth Vader. Like, the whole persona of Ben taking on Kylo Ren with the mask, with the new name, all this was to create a new Vader. And then we get into The Last Jedi, and Snoke completely 180s, and he's calling him a child in a mask.
And makes fun of the mask, which is also another self-aware comment of, like, it's silly to have that. Every villain in Star Wars lore has a mask.
I know. It's a constant in both video games and in lore for a dark villain to have a mask. But, I mean, that aside, it completely 180s where we were at. Snoke was trying to create a new Vader and encourage this lifestyle that Ben took on. And now he's like, and you could argue that it was just, Snoke like trying to manipulate him to kill Rey, but I don't feel like that was needed because, as we said, Kylo as portrayed in The Force Awakens, is the first true villain. He believes the dark side to be the right way and the light side to be the wrong way. He completely talks about things in the opposite, where everyone talks about being tempted or corrupted by the dark side. He's talking about being tempted and corrupted by the light side.
Right.
And I still have faith that JJ will bring it back, but I was like infatuated with Kylo and what he could have become. And I predicted, I think on a previous podcast, that he would eventually kill Snoke and become the ultimate villain, which he did in this movie. But
not in a great way.
Not in a good way. He seems like an adolescent child. He doesn't seem like he's in control of his emotions. And his motivation right now, I don't really understand. Why kill Snoke?
Right.
Like, I predicted that it would happen, and I wanted it to happen, but it wasn't given to us in this movie in a good way. Like, he just did it.
Snoke also never completed his training. Like, that was like the last thing.
Yeah, that was the last thing he
Hux,
said.
bring
him
me
to
Kylo.
me. We
so
have
I
to
can
complete his training.
Which never happens.
Which I guess was, I'm going to call you a child who plays in masks, even though I encourage you to wear a mask the entire time.
I also don't buy that Snoke would die the way he did moments after we saw him summon Force lightning out of the ground. Snoke is a being that we have never seen before. He is so powerful and so tapped into the dark side.
I almost would go as far to say that that's another issue with this movie, is we're shown that the Force is too powerful. Like, Rian Johnson has almost gone too far, because we see what Snoke can do, and we're like I'm sitting in the movie theater thinking, holy crap, this dude is literally the most powerful thing we've ever seen. But then we have Rey at the very end, like, nonchalantly picking up like hundreds of rocks to save the people. So I feel like this is another issue with the movie.
It's like power caliber whenever you're
right.
Think of it as if like Marvel has to think about it all the time, right? With all of their heroes, you have to really like deconstruct like what the characters are, what the power levels are, and how they interact with other characters, so that things have a consistency.
Yeah.
And have a cause and effect.
We lost the consistency. Like, and I've seen tweets of other people saying what I felt. It's like, I don't even know what the Force is anymore. Like, I don't know how to quantify it anymore. Because before we could like say, okay, this guy is more powerful than this guy because he could do this. Right. Or like, I am so talented in the Force because I could do this. But now it's like we've got all these different people just doing like just bonkers stuff with the Force with little effort. Like even when we saw that Luke was doing that whole thing with the projection, I was like, holy moly, I cannot believe that he did that with the Force. But then like seconds later, Rey's just like, haha, let me lift all this stuff, which we already know was
with hardly any training at all.
Right, which with her, yeah. And Luke early on, we know it was tough for him to lift like a handful of rocks.
Right.
So, but apparently she's from nobody.
Which, on that quick note before we end on Snoke, is you've done one of two things. You have seriously pissed me off by not making her a Skywalker, or you've wasted my time because she's going to be a Skywalker. Like, that's the only two ways you've done. You pissed me off either way.
In the theater, out loud, to where anyone could hear me, I'm pretty sure, when Kylo's like, I know what it is. Do you know what it is? Like talking about her parents, and I was like, just say it, because I knew I was gonna be right. And it's gonna explain why they had this Force connection that nobody else has, because they are brother and sister, or she's a Skywalker, they're both Skywalkers. No.
Well, Rian Johnson in an interview after the movie did say that he never intended that line to be taken seriously, and JJ can do whatever he wants with it.
I know, but
which proves again they're making it up as they go along. There is no clear, concise vision of who Rey was. But to end on Snoke, I want to end on Snoke. Yeah,
let's end on Snoke.
Snoke.
He's a wasted character.
He's a wasted character. One of the things I've been seeing from friends and from online is making a parallel to the Emperor. It's like, well, the Emperor didn't get a backstory for 15 years. Here's the thing. We live in a different time. We deserve better. We deserve better than a throwaway villain. We also deserve rich
and even
lore.
Up until the end, the Emperor was not a throwaway villain.
No.
The Emperor was built up through 3 different movies as being the leader of the most evil force in the galaxy. Mm-hmm. The person that Vader, the most feared person in the galaxy, bows to. Like, there's something to be said for that, because Micah, friend of the show, also brought that up, and I didn't have a great answer for him as to, well, no, we didn't, have a good backstory for the Emperor, but we did have this insinuation and this feeling of
Like
who he was.
is.
Like,
Yes.
he is the big bad. And then we see it at the end that he is in complete control. And the only reason he won is because Luke was able to turn Vader. If Luke hadn't been able to turn Vader, the Emperor was always 5 steps ahead. We saw that in the Return of the Jedi. We didn't need more than that. Like, we had this mystery, this knowledge of who he was, what he represented. With Snoke, we didn't have any of that. We had a giant hologram in the beginning with the insinuation that he'd been around for a long time.
To the point where Han and Leia are talking about him like they knew who he was before he took Ben.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. Like, there is a clear past that we do not know about and that we deserve to know about. With the Emperor, it was a mystery to everyone. Like, he was the mysterious, most evil person in the galaxy. Like, that's what the Emperor was.
He was omnipotent.
Exactly. And Snoke, how does Han and Leia know about him? How did Snoke turn Ben and steal him from his uncle? Like, there's so many answers that needed to be answered. There are so many questions that needed to be answered.
Also, to the point where, most intriguingly, he's not Sith. He's of the dark side of the Force because he has his own structure of how it all works.
And that's another thing, too. I walked out of Force Awakens thinking, holy crap, this dude has set up a new dark side order. They're no longer Sith. He's the supreme leader, and he's got these Knights of Ren, and Kylo is the leader, and we don't get any answers. We don't know who the Knights of Ren are. We don't see any of them. We don't know who Snoke is or how he became involved, or we don't know anything. Like, I'm almost speechless because I'm so frustrated. He became a throwaway villain. You cast Andy Serkis, who's just an amazing actor, amazing motion capture actor, and you just throw it away. You throw it away. Mm-hmm. He was a throwaway villain. Right now, he is a plot device only, and Snoke, as we've been told, deserves more.
He deserved a long arc that was satisfying.
I would have been okay if he died in this movie, if we had thrown out the useless parts of this movie and completely focused on, like, Snoke and Kylo and Rey and Luke, like the contrast between those
Canto Bight could have been completely thrown away, and I could have been given flashbacks to the Luke's Jedi Temple.
I don't even need flashbacks. What I needed was for Luke to be Luke, start training Rey, Kylo to go back to Snoke, him
train with Snoke. It could have been a parallel.
Yeah, exactly.
It could have been, while they talk about the balance of the Force, like Rey came up to balance the dark side that is Kylo, and that's how they're justifying her power set. You could have had it be you could have had the story structure be that metaphor. You could have had him training with Snoke and Rey training with Luke, and just be about that. I don't care about the other stuff.
Yeah. And, like, I don't know. It just,
for me, it really threw off.
It's just all bad storytelling.
It really threw off my hype train, right? Like, The Force Awakens came out, I loved it. Rogue One came out, and I was like, this is great. Even after all the drama with the reshoots and stuff, I walked away going, I really don't care, because that movie was so cool. If the reshoots gave me that, and the movie that was originally intended was something other than that, I really don't care, because that movie was great.
Yeah. And
now we have this movie, which I'm disappointed in, and the next movie is Han Solo, which is a movie I do not want, and it's being shoved down my throat. And I feel like by the time that J.J. Abrams' movie comes out, I'm going to be really excited, but I'm not going to be where I should be, right?
I agree.
Do you remember when they announced for the next 6 years, every year we'll have a Star Wars movie?
Yeah, I was so excited.
I remember until 2020 we're going to have a Star Wars movie.
Remember legitimately holding back tears after the first Force Awakens trailer came out, and Han Solo comes out and says, "We're home." Like, I remember having goosebumps during that entire trailer, and, like, I'm almost tearing up right now just thinking about it, like, how I felt. And that's been ruined. It's been ruined. And it's not been ruined because I'm a butthurt fan. It's been ruined because the movie that just came out had terrible storytelling, had throwaway characters, had throwaway plot, and really, in the grand scheme of things, ended in the same place it began. They didn't accomplish anything in this movie. And for the people who out there who are saying that this is better than Empire, which I already, is a debate upon itself, saying that Empire is the best one, because I think The Last Jedi is the best one. But I cannot fathom how they think that. I cannot I don't understand how you can walk out of that film as a diehard Star Wars fan and think, yeah.
The two things I want to end on is one, in my opinion, this movie ranks below Episode 3. I think the ranking that you made is exactly what I feel. It's like right above Episode 1.
On Twitter.
Mm-hmm. It's like right above Episode 1 at the bottom of the list, this movie.
Several weeks back, there was several people were doing it, but I followed Tom Kennedy, the MMA fighter slash military guy who's on Hunting Hitler, which is an amazing show, by the way. He posted his, and so it inspired me to post mine, like ranking all the movies. I put, I can't even remember. I think I put Force Awakens. I know for sure is my favorite, and then I put the Return of the Jedi
is number 2.
And then I put Empire. And then I put
Force Awakens,
Rogue One, and then New Hope, and then Episode 3, then Return of the Jedi, then Episode 2, or Episode 1, Episode 2.
Now Return of the Jedi, Last Jedi.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just said it.
Yeah. So it's at the bottom of the list. Number 2, if you consider yourself a true Star Wars fan and you walked out of this movie really enjoying it, I really want to challenge you and ask, do you consume any other Star Wars material outside of these movies? Because if you don't, then you do not have an idea or grasp of what is Star Wars.
Here's the deal, though.
I'm talking about current canon. I'm talking about Star Wars Rebels, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and all the current books.
But there are people out there, and I'm not going to hold anybody like, how dare you like this movie? Because there are people who go in and they just want to watch a movie. Like I think we're in somewhat of a minority where we go in highly critical of every movie we watch. And a lot of people don't. Like they just go in and they just want to be entertained. And I could see where, because people went into Batman versus Superman and they were entertained. Like they didn't care.
People were entertained by Justice League.
They were entertained by Justice League. They didn't care that like the CGI sucked on the bad guy, or that the editing sucked, or the major plot point that turned Batman and Superman together was that their mothers had the same name. Like they don't care. They just want to see like lightsabers and star battles, and like that's fine. But if you're a true fan and you care about the canon, or if you're a true movie fan and you care about like good storytelling, good plot, good character development, like how I don't understand how you can walk out and like justify this movie in any way. Like if you come out and you say, I was entertained, that's all I was looking for, I can't wait for the next movie, okay, that's fine. But if you come out and you're like trying to justify the things that we have problems with in this episode, I don't get you. I'm sorry, I don't get you.
Not one bit.
I'm sorry. And that's fine. Like that's fine, but I don't get you. And you're what's wrong with the country today. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I go to a dark place.
All right.
And to be fair, you probably don't get us either.
Yeah,
but we really
that's probably true.
But we needed to have a platform. We needed to talk about it.
Right. I wanted to have just a discussion and present where we were coming from, because it seems like, and it's
we're being attacked for being fans,
right? And it's true with like every facet in life nowadays. But like in this case, we didn't like it, so we have to be just butthurt Star Wars fans. No. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed. We deserve better. We deserve better. Like that's where all this is coming from. I come from a background of like reading all the novels, reading the comics, like having an extensive knowledge and respect for the lore and the canon. And we didn't get that in this movie.
To the point where you were even accepted of the fact that this is a new canon line, right? Like,
yeah.
Because there are fans that were like,
there were fans that were up in arms about throwing out the extended universe, not really using it. And at first I was like, man, that really sucks, because I've spent like, at that point, like more than half my life invested in the extended universe and what happened to all our favorite heroes after the movies. But I was like, I'm all in. Let's do this. I have faith. George Lucas, his grubby hands are out of it.
Yeah. I wish I remember what Nick and I ended up talking about, and if Nick can remember, maybe he can write on the YouTube comments below. But we had a conversation about how The Last Jedi should have gone, and it had a couple really cool beats, but it ended with the Yuzong Vong popping up, and then like totally throwing the First Order off the rails and being like, what up?
Dude,
Nick, if you remember what we talked about, please comment below.
The Yuzong Vong storyline was so good.
We can talk about that later. I would actually like to have an episode where you talk about that, honestly.
Okay.
I'll just sit here and listen.
That's fine.
But please talk about that because it's cool.
So I guess we'll end it here before we continue rambling. We're at 50 minutes now, so it's probably time to stop. I will say that since we don't know anything about Snoke, and as far as we know, or as far as I know, if we know any different, let us know in the comments or tweet at us. I don't think that we're even going to ever find out what the deal with Snoke is, at least not immediately.
Right.
So I kind of have in my mind, I think I'm going to do a little bit of a different video on the channel where I just kind of explain who I think Snoke is, which we've
beyond the one we already did.
No, well, yeah, beyond that.
Okay.
Which you can go back and.
Has your opinion changed?
No, it hasn't changed.
Okay.
I just want to do a different type of video where it's kind of like more scripted and
it's more concise because
that
one's the old format where we do the news and stuff beforehand. You got fast forward to get to it.
Yeah, and it's not going to be me in front of a camera. It's going to be like clips from or pictures from different aspects and just me kind of briefly talking scripted, behind. Not in front of a camera, behind the camera.
I'm excited about that. This is the first time I've heard about this. That would be really good.
About who I think Snoke is and why I think that. And, as far as I know, that maybe the best we ever get is just fan theories. So,
unfortunately. But let me tell you, it's really exciting to be back. We've said it before, but really you can count on us to now have consistency. We've got some things working in the pipeline. We have a schedule of topics we want to approach moving forward. In fact, we had 2 topics that we really were kind of battling ourselves on what we wanted our launch title to be. So the next episode is really going to kind of be all about...
Well, Star Wars has always been like... Besides our very first episode, which was Batman versus Superman, which really is what motivated us to start this podcast, was the controversy behind Batman versus Superman. But Star Wars has always been, I feel like, a cornerstone with major turning points in the podcast. We always use Star Wars, it seems like, to coincide with some sort of significant episode. Yeah. So while we had 2 different topics that we could have done tonight, I knew that Star Wars had to be the one that we come back with. So
because this was the one that was going to give us the most passion and hopefully draw in new viewers. If you really enjoyed this in capacity, please share it with your friends, like the video, share it, subscribe to our channel if you haven't. And also one of the things that we really want to try to facilitate in our community is conversation. We had a very passionate stance on this, but we want to have a tame conversation with you if you don't agree with us. So please contact us on Twitter. Our Twitter links are in the description below,
or in the comments down
below. Please be respectful when you're commenting. We don't want to get into a pissing contest, but we do want to have a conversation with you. If you did love this movie to the end of the earth and you consider yourself to be a hardcore Star Wars fan,
legit,
let's talk
and don't
about
take don't take anything we've said personally. So if you like this movie, tell us why down below. I would legitimately like to
have a conversation
why you like this.
Because I know one of the things I fall short on is my passion comes across as my opinion is correct.
Right.
And while it is correct,
well, I was going to say, it is correct.
Yeah, come on.
So yeah, thanks for liking, commenting, and subscribing. You can follow us on YouTube. Search for us at Nerdosphere. We'll have links in the description down below. You can follow us on Twitter. We'll have links in the description down below. We each have a individual Twitter, and then we have a Nerdosphere Twitter. On the Nerdosphere Twitter, we will be sharing news updates, things that we like, things like that. We share movie news, TV news, video game news, all the things that we like. So
our own personal opinions are on our separate channel.
Yeah, and I've actually made a New Year's resolution starting in December not to be political. So I'm only I mainly talk in like
where's the red light go?
Is gone.
It was in that background. Let me press the button one more time.
Okay. Oh, memory card is full. Oh. All right, so
we're gonna leave this in because
yeah,
we're honest with you guys. As always, we'll see
you next time. Sorry, YouTube folks. Check us out on the links down below. We'll be back next week. Peace out. This stupid man. Dude, if it's not one thing, it's another. I'm telling you.